of God presence, let us pray. Father, Mother God, we give thanks for this opportunity to be open to the awareness of your presence. As we invite you into our consciousness, as we allow your guidance to determine our path. As we allow your soothing embrace to lift us, transform us. We give thanks. And so it is that together we say, Amen. Well, remember when? So, do you remember a time, some of you, this is fairly recent, so this should not be too much of a stretch, but do you remember a time when you had not been exposed to the teachings of New Thought or of unity? Do you recall how your life unfolded? I'd like to take just a moment here to allow you to think back. You know, for some of us it might be a year, for others of us it might be 30 years. But think back to an event sometime past when either unusual fear or betrayal seemed to be dominating your thoughts. Think about that time and consider what that meant to you at the time. How were you affected by that? What was it about that experience that caused you pain? How did you respond to it? What were the actors in that scenario? Usually there is a relationship involved in that kind of experience. How did that relationship unfold? What was the outcome? Okay, so you've got this thought in mind, this experience in mind. And oftentimes these kinds of experiences are what some would refer to, yeah, that was a blessing because it brought me to my knees. And it was easier to pray from there. Indeed, those adverse circumstances are very likely what caused the arising consciousness in humanity to acknowledge that there is a higher power, regardless of what name they apply to it, and regardless of what domain that higher power ruled in. There certainly in many primitive religions there was the approach that, well, God is out there somewhere doing God's thing, and it could have been a her or a him, depending upon what era we're talking about. But that God had some influence, maybe a lot of influence, on the activities with which we were engaged. So when we are knocked to our knees and it's easier to pray, that experience is one, in my mind, that was the catalyzing experience that caused an individual to say, wow, I don't know how to do this. Help me. Think about that. I don't know how to do this. Help me. Think about what that does. That changes our consciousness from one of, I am in control, I know what I want to do, I know the outcome that I want, I know what steps I need to take, right? We usually refer to that as the activity of the ego. And in that submission That letting go of the ego with, I don't know what I can do. I'm not in control. Help me, is an opening for us in consciousness to welcome in an awareness that we may not previously have had. So I'd like you to, if you are so inclined, I'd like a couple of you to share your experience if you are comfortable. And I know that everyone has an experience, right? And if we had all day and tomorrow, we might be able to get through all of them. So I'd like to have just a couple of you share your experience, and briefly. But this experience of, I don't know what to do, help me, is one that I think brought us into an awareness of, acknowledgement of, and a desire for a higher power to be involved in our lives. So, there's something that distinguishes, well, there are many things that distinguishes unity from more traditional Christian approaches. And that is that when we say we are praying, in many traditional Christian approaches, what we're doing is we're asking God to change something, right? Asking God to intervene, to fix something that was wrong, to right some adverse condition so that it is more comfortable for us, so that it's more pleasing to us. Whereas in unity, what we teach, pretty much across the board in every unity ministry, and every unity ministry has a unique teaching just because of the unique expression of the minister. But in unity, a universal teaching is that prayer is not about changing conditions out there. Prayer is about changing our consciousness. And when we are changing our consciousness, what we're doing is we're really changing the way we respond to the adverse conditions. Okay? Now that may seem like that's just a minor perspective, but actually it is a very significant difference between the traditional Christian approach, where prayers are for the intervention and the correction, the intervention by God and the correction of the conditions of the world. When we take on the responsibility, first of all, when we acknowledge that the correction needs to be done within us, that is very empowering, because no longer are we waiting to see the conditions change. Oh God, if you are there, if you're there, I'm trusting you that you're there. God, prove to me that you're there. Change the conditions that I'm praying for. Notice how, when the conditions don't change, what that does. That causes us to say, oh, wait a minute. Either God is not aware. That's kind of an oh shit moment, isn't it? Or God doesn't care. And that's an equally oh shit moment. Because that kind of experience is one where, oh my God, I'm here alone without help. But I've been taught that God is always there. God loves me unconditionally. Why isn't God changing what needs to be changed? Okay, so that's one approach. And then the other approach, that is approach of unity, that we are in our prayer, we are transforming our own consciousness. And indeed, that does happen. That is a powerful way of taking a new view of our experience and realizing that, well, that may have happened, but what are the opportunities that come from that? That's one perspective. What are the opportunities that come from that? What is it that I was involved in that caused that? Or what is it that I can do now to change my mind about what happened? Because obviously I can't reverse the clock and make some reversal of conditions regardless of how much power I have. So how is it that I can take a different perspective that is going to allow me not just to survive this condition, but to thrive in this condition? Make sense? So that change that comes from the realization that prayer is about the transformation of my own consciousness rather than getting some divine presence to change the conditions that I am praying about, allows me to take responsibility, gives me the opportunity to engage my ability to respond to the conditions that are there. Okay, so there are a number of passages that bring this forth. We know about the 5 principles of unity. Certainly, many of us do. These being the 5 principles of unity, these are principles that were actually condensed from the writings of Charles Fillmore. Charles did not write those principles. After Charles died, there was a concern about the followers of Charles' teaching to say, okay, now how can we encapsulate what he said? He was a very verbose individual. I mean, if you listen to some of the old radio broadcasts, you say, now how in the world did he have a congregation that sat through that expression of truth? Indeed, he was very eloquent. And as a result of their concern, this came out of it. These are really the 5 fundamental principles. That there's one power, one presence, God the good. There is the Christ within us that is an expression of the divine if we let it be. And the thoughts that we hold in mind are truly manifesting in our experience, and that's why prayer about changing our own consciousness is about an active, creative role that we take in our experience. And so thoughts held in mind manifest in our experience. It's really our primary piece of leverage in this unfolding of our life experience. And then we have the tools of transformation being meditation and prayer. The prayer that I'm talking about is the prayer of correcting my own consciousness. Meditation being that act of being in communion with the divine, the all that is all, not someone out there, but someone that expresses within and through each of us. And then there is the denial and affirmation. The denial being that we take away the power of that condition out there by affirming some statement of truth. And so that denial and affirmation is really an extraction of power that we have given, that we have voluntarily given to that adverse condition. Okay, so the 5th principle being, okay, now we know this, it's our responsibility to live it. So I'd like you to share with us, I'm going to give you a microphone, I'd like to, for you to share with us some situation that was pre-New Thought, pre-unity, that caused you to drop to your knees to pray. Who would like to do that? Who has the to be willing to do that? I know each and every one of you have had that experience. Do I need to call on someone? Come on. It's your opportunity. All right. Okay. 2 minutes.
You all know that it's been a rocky road the last 12 months for me. But what a trip it's been. And this is not pre-unity. But one thing I have found about unity is that the more you learn, the more you need to learn, the more you are open to wanting to learn more. So in my experience in the last 12 months, most of you know I've been through 4 surgeries and 5 hospitalizations. And it has been an amazing experience for me. And I have learned so much. After my right before my 4th surgery, I was really in a deep, dark place. And I've studied unity for a long time, and it was like everything was out here. I was having a hard time incorporating it into my actual experience. I talked to David. I said, I've been using my denials and affirmations, and I just can't seem to grab hold of anything. He said, just keep on. Just keep doing them. And it came to me later on that day, right before I went into surgery. Surrender. Surrender to the experience. Don't try to explain it. Don't try to correct it. Don't label it good or bad. Just surrender and know the oneness that we are with God. And that was kind of a turning point for me. So if I can share that with anybody, sometimes, we get up here, and I do this, I've always done this, I've overthought things. Sometimes if we can just surrender to it, it opens the door, and it gives you the faith to walk through the door to a new experience. And it's not that I know everything, I don't have all the answers. What has happened to me through this last year is that I know that there are so many things I do not know, but to be open to them. So that's been my experience. And anybody who pauses in front of me, I love talking about this, so.
Who else would like to share their experience? Yeah, Doreen.
Well, I was raised in the United Methodist Church, and I was really into it. And then about in the mid 60s, my parents went through a divorce, and it was really dramatic, very dramatic. And all of a sudden, I didn't believe anymore, because, like you said, you prayed out there, and nothing happened. And so all of a sudden, I didn't believe. And then I went through a long period where, at that time. And then I was working, and some lady came to me. We became friends. She was an older lady, and she became my friend. And she gave me a copy of Eric Fromm's The Art of Loving. And I don't know, that did something to me. But I didn't, I guess it was just kind of going through me. The book was going through me. And it wasn't probably till the 80s that I had another friend. She talked about a fire walk at the Science of Mind. So I went to Science of Mind, and I really liked it there. I felt comfortable. I didn't feel threatened, and I was open to try the experience. And then I came to, I couldn't, this was in Arizona, the center was too far away, so I thought, where else can I go? Where else can I go? When somebody said, well, there's a Unity Church in Mesa, Arizona. So I went there, and it's like, I sat back there. I felt so comfortable. It just started speaking to me. And then now it's pushing up into the 2000s. And I got back into my Dawn Yoga, body and brain. And to me, where one presents something to me, and then I come here, it kind of like, it just puts it all together for me. And now I'm at a point where I was a person who didn't open myself to other people. I mean, I guess in that time period, I was making myself strong, and so strong that I wasn't open to people helping me, And now I have such wonderful friends. A lot of them, a big portion of them, are members of this church, and I feel like now I'm a kind of person who I can open up to allow myself to be helped by other people. So I thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Doreen, and thank you, Ginger, for sharing that. The interesting thing is that we have these experiences, and in some cases we have a momentary experience, kind of an, oh yeah. How many of you have had that, oh yeah, kind of experience where you are at one with the all that is all, right? Right? You've had that experience? Okay. And then the next minute, somebody cuts in front of you on the freeway. Or you get a phone call from someone saying, hey, your dog has been over in my yard digging up flowers, and next time that dog comes over here, I'm going to call the dog catcher. So we have these wow experiences. And then it's back to the day-to-day battle, right? The day-to-day encounters that can be challenging. Well, Ken Wilber talks about those wow experiences as a state of consciousness. A state of consciousness that is an elevated state. I mean, we all have states of consciousness, and we're all in a state of consciousness all the time. But those elevated states lift us up to see what is possible, but we do not have the foundation under those states, and we fall back into the normal day-to-day encounter. And then there's the stage of consciousness that Wilber talks about. And the stage of consciousness is that time when we have changed the way we think. We have changed the way we encounter day-to-day circumstances so that those circumstances are no longer challenges, but rather they're just events. And we respond to those events without the kind of emotional turmoil that we have had in the past. And that change of stage of consciousness is really about acknowledging one power and one presence, and acknowledging the presence of the Christ within us. Acknowledging and knowing. Acknowledging and knowing. Some would say believing. Well, one of the revelations I had this week was that in unity, the teachings that we are about have a tendency to change the stage of consciousness, okay? So that we are shifting in the way we encounter circumstances. Whereas my experience with traditional Christianity and my experience with traditional Christians is that they are encountering states of consciousness without changes in stages of consciousness. So that when they go into, for instance, an evangelical church, and there's just all kinds of wonderful music, and there is this powerful prayer, and there is this message that God is here and loves you, and so on, that you come into this euphoria, and then you go outside. And when you go outside, you're back into the day-to-day, and your stage of consciousness has not changed, and there is this comparison between, oh man, I must really be a sinner because I'm not feeling it here, but when I go to church, I'm really feeling it. So there is this constant comparison between this and that, right? Oh, wow, come to my church because we really get it on, right? We really get a high state of consciousness. Whereas in unity, the teachings tend to be constructive in changing our stage so that as we believe these principles, as we practice the principles and we prove the principles, then our stage of consciousness changes. And there is not so much comparison between the elevated state that we sometimes find ourselves in and the somewhat elevated stage of consciousness. Okay, so one of the things that is important for us to remember is, why do we come here? What is it about this experience? What is it about this community that lifts us, that transforms us? There is a clip by Marvin Jackson. We'll go over to, there it is, right there. Just a short clip. Sound?
My what is writing books.
Okay,
My what can be going
return
out
to the
with-
beginning.
The series is called How Do I Know? And a lot of times when people hear the phrase, how do I know, the next thing they say is what? How do I know what? But the key really isn't to know what. The key is to know why. Because when you know your why, you have options on what your what can be. For instance, my why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. My what is stand-up comedy. My what is writing books. My what can be going out with some friends to eat. In fact, another what that has moved me towards my why is a web series that we have out now called Break Time. So every Wednesday at 3 o'clock, you should subscribe to the channel. We do a series called Break Time on YouTube. So 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode. One episode in particular, I'm about to show you a clip to. We were in Winston-Salem. So Break Time, this is how it works. I travel the country, I do stand-up comedy, probably an hour, hour and a half at an event. And in the middle of my show, I'll just sit down and start talking to the audience. And funny just happens. Or I'll meet somebody who's really interesting. So I met this one guy, and he said that he teaches music at a school. I was like, all right, you teach music, can you sing? And then I'm just gonna show you the clip. Check it. So you're a musical director.
Yes,
Cool.
sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Wow. That bro could sing. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now, once you give me the version, is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick, if you know which version I'm talking about. Just see if that exists. Let me see what you got.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Right now I'm fine, was blind, but now I see.
So here's the thing. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time I asked him to sing, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what has more impact because you're walking in or towards your purpose.
Is that it? Okay. So I go back to the question that I asked earlier. Why do you come here? What is it? Why is that experience so engaging? The power of continually remembering our why. Why do we do what we do? Why do we get up in the morning? Why are we engaged in some things and not in others? Why are we willing to step out there and explore? Why are we willing? Why? It comes back to beliefs. It comes back to beliefs. Now, in our community council, if you all are so inclined, maybe near the end of it, there's an 18-minute video that I'd like to share with you about your why. But it got me thinking, and someone offered this text about why Living Water Unity. At Living Water Spiritual Community, and I'd like your feedback on this, we believe, one, a glorious future of prosperity, health, peace, and well-being can be created for all through the shared spiritual awakening of humanity. Now that's a pretty big belief, right? It's a pretty big belief. We also believe that we can free ourselves and all of humanity from a past of human-created hell-on-earth experiences. That's more practical, more down-to-earth, still very broad, that is, very encompassing. We also believe these experiences are created by unenlightened human, these adverse experiences are created by unenlightened human self-interest, and they continue to bring unnecessary suffering to millions upon millions of planets and many other life forms on the planet. Millions and millions of people and many other life forms on the planet. Coming in this morning, I was listening to NPR. There was a report about a marine biologist that was doing water samples of various parts of the globe and talking about the presence of plastic microparticles and doing a count of microparticles from various locations on the planet. And out of 291 samples, she had 261 that had plastic. These are from samples all over the planet. Now, we have had adverse impact on this thing that revolves around a random sun in the far reaches of the galaxy. What can we do about it? We can't do anything about it if we have this perspective, oh God, fix this. God's not going to intervene in this. I guarantee you that God will not intervene in this. However, we have the ability to change our consciousness. Perhaps we will not be able to rid the ocean of the plastics, but we may in fact be able to rid the ocean of any influx of plastics. But it's going to take a changed consciousness of all of us. But we can't do this. We can't expect that somebody is going to do it for us. We have to do it ourselves. It is possible to change ourselves and the world through our thoughts. We believe that we can do these things. What are your thoughts about that set of beliefs? Is that a set of beliefs that you would like to engage in? Is that a set of beliefs that you feel has the power to transform our society, our culture, in fact, all of the planet's inhabitants? You see, if we can engage in a common set of beliefs, we have the power to transform. Individually, transform our own lives. Collectively, transform the lives of everyone on the planet. So what is your why? What makes you get up in the morning? What is it that you feel so driven that as he said, his why is to engage people to walk towards their purpose, to walk in purpose? What is your why? That's our homework for this week. We'll have our meditation. As we come in to read into this moment, as we allow ourselves to rest in this moment, consciously breathing, feeling your breath in, feeling your breath out. I pose this question for you that I invite you to reconsider through the week. What are the beliefs that I hold? What are the fundamental beliefs that I hold? And why? Why do I hold them? And how do those beliefs engage my life, direct my life, propel my life, or obstruct my life? What are my beliefs? Why do I hold them? And how do they enhance my life? We let go of the fear of this investigation. We let go of the fear of the questions themselves, knowing that whatever answer we come up with, we don't have to accept. But also knowing that the answers that we arrive at may be transformative. Maybe. What are my beliefs? Why do I hold them? How do they affect my life? And being open to this investigation, we come back to this time and place, sharing the words of Alleluia.